Hey guys, it's Max. Thank you so much for checking out the Differently Wired show. I just wanted to provide you this quick 15-second note off the top. This is an edited version of the live stream John and I did on Wednesday, January 16th. I'm uploading an edited version because there were 6 minutes around the middle of the show where we had technical difficulties. Connections were lost, voices got really loud, yada yada yada. So there will be a cut in this video at 27 minutes and 12 seconds. As well, you will notice John has a bit of a robotic sounding voice at 29 minutes and 55 seconds into the video. Now, don't worry about that, that goes away at 31 minutes and 13 seconds. I understand how important the stuff we talk about is, and I don't want people who need to listen most to be turned away by technical problems, you know? So with that out of the way, on with the show. Guten Tag, everybody! Hello, everybody. Welcome to the second episode of Differently Wired. I'm your host, Max Derrat. Thanks so much for joining us. If you're watching us live or afterwards, doesn't matter. I'm just glad that you're here. Before we get started, I want to introduce my co-host, the guy who's been with me ever since the beginning, which isn't much, we've only been doing this. This is a second episode, but I know, I anticipate that he'll be around for a while because he's pretty good at what he does. His name is John Tucker. John, how are you doing today?
I am wonderful. Thank you, Max.
Good. So listen, everybody, if you watched the very first episode of the show, we did say originally that some things are going to be tweaked around. We're going to be trying different things based on your suggestions, based on stuff that John and I pass back and forth. What we did last week is we started off the top with just a main topic, and that topic was, what was it again? Should you disclose your diagnosis? But today, John thought it might be a good idea if we brought in somebody to talk to, somebody who actually has Asperger's, and to talk about their experiences with it and the ways that they manage to cope with their particular diagnosis. So now, speaking of that particular guest, I want to introduce them right now. Her name is Olivia. Olivia, would you like to introduce yourself?
Oh yeah. Okay. Hi. I'm Olivia. I'm 33 years old, German, and I'm currently living in Peru.
Hence the reason why I said Guten Tag off the top of the show. Forgive me, that's all I know. I don't even know how to swear in German, and I know how to swear like in 20 other languages. Weird fact about me that I probably shouldn't have disclosed. But anyways, Olivia, she happened to find John. I just learned this right before the show. It kind of blew my mind. She found John after I did a video on my channel talking to people about what John does. It's titled Coaching. I'm sure some of you might have seen it. And she contacted him, and now John is currently coaching her. So for that reason, John obviously has much greater idea of who Olivia is and her life story and what she's trying to get through. So I'm going to let John take the reins for the next 20 minutes. And then after that, we'll get into the mailbag. We'll get into your live questions. So stick with us, guys. Oh, one thing before we actually start talking to Olivia, I just want to let you guys know that we will be taking live questions towards the very end of the show. So before we get to that, I just want to say that if you want to submit your questions, make sure you do it on Twitter and use the hashtag #DifferentlyWired. All one word, that's #DifferentlyWired. Now, John, want to take things away?
Great. Thank you very much. So Olivia and I have been working together for a month or so. As Max said, she found me through his video where he and I chatted about coaching. Olivia is in a big place in Lima where it is a challenge if a person is sensitive. It's a noisy, big, busy place. So it presents a very interesting challenge to someone with the diagnosis of Asperger's. So she needed help getting organized. And as we were working through some little strategies, she started showing me her artwork, and I was blown away. It is such powerful stuff that I said, oh, this people need to see this stuff, because it seemed like an expression of, well, I'm actually not going to spoil that. She'll get to that. Max will get to that in a minute. First of all, Olivia, what is it like for you to live in Peru?
To live in Peru. That's a difficult question, but I came to Peru because I met my husband here, and we were like dating for certain months, and I visited this country, and after ending university, I just spontaneously decided to come to Peru to live here. It was like a big adventure, but at the end, I struggled a lot the first time I came here to live. I wasn't even aware of my diagnosis in that time, and so it was a big struggle. The noises, the movements, and all the sensory stuff. And for the first time, also in my life, I was starting to live with someone. I have been living on my own for about like 30 something years. I'm 33 now, and so this whole experience was really demanding. And I also returned back to Germany because when things went worse, I wanted to investigate what is going on with me. And there's a bigger story behind, but at the end, I came back to Peru, and right now I'm kind of managing my life here. Also with you, you helped me to get organized and to reach my, or to look, not to look, to find out my way to my professional life, what I really want to do. So
You want to talk a little bit more about the diagnosis?
I can do that, yes.
Okay.
So almost a year ago, I was diagnosed on the autistic spectrum at the age of 32, and by the time I was diagnosed, I already completed a training as a stonemason and sculptor as in a gravestone manufacturing, which was my longest employment. I worked for about 4 years, and then in 2015, I got my bachelor degree in design. And during these achievements, I have a long history of short-time jobs, mostly physical, demanding, monotonous tasks. And because I wasn't able to achieve the things I really wanted, these jobs mostly lasted for about 3 months or maybe a year. So I have also a lifelong mental health issues history. So I struggled with depression, anxiety, and permanent fatigue. And I remember some days going out of high school and sleeping inside the car because I didn't want to go home, and I didn't want to see my parents want that my parents see me being tired because of whatever. Maybe I was staying up too long. I didn't. In that time, I didn't realize that I have sensory issues, that I am overwhelmed really fast. And yeah, till the day I started coaching, I learned a lot about neurological differences, but because of my diagnosis. But before, I never addressed these problems, and I performed as best as I could. But I always felt that something is completely wrong with me, and my mom always used to say that I go too much into details, and that shows up positively in art, but negatively in conversations or overthinking. And I wasn't realizing that people get bored, for example. Not always, but I always ask people, should I stop talking, because I couldn't see, I couldn't recognize if I'm maybe talking too much.
It seems, Olivia and Max, you guys would share certain empathies and understanding around what Olivia is saying right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I was just about to ask if I could jump in because Olivia,
Yeah.
Yeah, everything that you just said, I've been hearing over and over and over again from all the
Mhm.
commenters that I've been receiving on my videos for the last year. And even now, just as you were explaining everything up until this point about your sensory issues, feeling fatigued, feeling shame about, your job experiences, all of what you just said, it's shocking how much it parallels my own life and the lives of everybody
Mhm.
else. And I want
Mhm.
guys, if to those that are listening to this particular episode live and those who are watching the pre-recorded show afterwards, please leave a comment or a live chat comment just validating what I just said and what Olivia just said. Now, Olivia, before we continue, I just wanted to ask you quickly, when you received that diagnosis, how did you feel? Like, did it feel like everything in your entire life was falling into place? Everything was just starting to make sense. Did you feel relieved? Did you feel scared?
Totally. I was I actually never wanted to be labeled with something. I knew I have mental health issues. I knew I'm depressed, but I always knew that there is no chemical imbalance. I knew something is just going wrong in my life, socially talking. Um, my interests, my need, my alone time I needed, but also at the same time, it was not. When I was like in my 20s, I have never heard about autism. And what was the actual question? Just help me back. I forgot.
Okay, the question I was just asking, when you received the diagnosis,
Mhm.
how did you feel? Like, did it feel like your mind was cast back over all those decades and everything, like all those terrible moments started to make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Um, there was a kind of excitement and like
Conflicting
like it
emotions?
felt it felt like I don't know. I can't explain. It felt like I can rebuild myself. I can start my life from zero, build on my skills I have, and accept especially my weak points,
Mm.
because there are many. And I was forcing myself, like for 30 years, I forced myself to do all these things, which I'm not able to learn them. I mean, you can learn to a certain point, you can mask to a certain point, but um, I mean, now I can start to be more relaxed and accept, but at the same time, your environment, it's so important that your environment, your parents, your partner, whatever, your friends, that they have to learn about it. And because even if parents might be like good people, they can be extremely. I wouldn't. I don't want to blame parents, but
Mm.
or my parents, but they have been always telling me, "You're too sensitive. You're to this. You're to that, and explosive."
Yeah.
And they have to learn too. And it's it's something that affects the whole environment, not only myself.
Hmm. Yeah, there's
It's
a lot of, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people in my videos, when I've talked about my parents, a lot of them say they sound like terrible people. No, they're really not. They're absolutely wonderful people, and I'm sure yours are as well. It's just when it comes to issues that human beings don't understand or that they're ignorant of, I suppose maybe those, I don't want to say primitive because that sounds insulting, instinctual uh, feelings come out where they don't know how to react and they react negatively because that's just what you do when it comes to things you don't understand. And I'm assuming that's sort of what happened with you.
especially with meltdowns.
Mm.
And I mean, I have them since I'm a kid, and my mom never knew what is going on with me, and I had several doctor's appointments uh, because of my aggressive behavior and my rigidity and all these things.
And
And
nobody
I have
suspect. Sorry, sorry. I meant to say.
nobody. Yeah.
Sorry, I meant to ask. Nobody suspected it was Asperger's or any form of autism.
No,
Wow.
no. Eventually, it was just in the early 90s. I mean, it could be. I mean, I'm a girl, and I was eventually to less obviously autistic,
Right.
maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, that happens with women,
Uh-huh.
particularly when it comes to autism.
Yeah, yeah.
John?
Yeah. Um, I meant to jump in about the role that parents play. It's a sophisticated, complex role. They mean well, but sometimes their well intentions are the very last thing they should do. They'll try to get you to behave normal or be average or something that they feel will help you stay safe. They don't want you to come into the world and present yourself as somebody that would be ostracized. They keep trying to carve away the edges of your personality so you get through the world unscathed. And of course, it doesn't work at all
Mm.
because you can't be that different person that they imagine you could become. So it's complicated for parents. They want the best for you, but it's sometimes difficult for them to accept that their kid's different, right? And operates differently, and maybe needs quiet space, and maybe needs not to be nagged all day about something. It's a constant battle in my work, all across all of the ASD, Asperger's, ADHD spectrum. Parents usually come to me and say, "Can you fix this? Can you make this go away? Can you make them stop interrupting? Can you, so on and so forth." And sometimes you can a little bit, but
Mm.
it's in families, relationships, and work environments. Really, it's a group effort. You have to work together. You have to approach it with understanding and empathy. And if you're with somebody who will not do that, you have to get away. You have to get out of it.
Right. Or you have to
It's
find different ways to cope. And
Yep. Yep.
in respect to what you were just talking about before, I'm really interested because talking about things that parallel my life and the lives of other people that have Asperger's, I find that people who contact me say, "Oh, I excel in very specific areas, things that really interest me, but when it comes to regular work, I can only, like you said, I can only stay at a particular job for like 3 months. Sometimes
Mm-hmm.
that's especially the case for me."
Mm-hmm.
When it You said that you got a bachelor's in design and sculpture. Can you tell us more about that and how that's positively impacted your life?
I'm not sure. I left school and I was looking for a training to get a profession, and I was always uh, I was into art, and I also like professions, like active professions. So I did an internship in a gravestone manufacturing, and I got a job. I don't know how old I was, like 17,
Wow.
and I did this. In that time, I also recognized I'm getting along with guys better than with girls,
Yeah.
because it was pretty um, not complicated to talk to these guys in that job, and it was a hard job, but it was also an interesting. It's an interesting profession, and but I did these 4 years. I got my what's it called, training certificate. But I felt that I want to study. I want to go more into education. Like I wanted more to know more. So I actually wanted to study restoration, and I ended up in design, which was not my best choice, because at the end I'm more an artist than a designer. I really hate design, and
Mm.
yeah, but I did it, and I tried the hard way. I was about to be an illustrator, and I have illustrated some work, but it didn't work for me. I was feeling pressure. I was anxious, and I just hated to create art from the point of view that someone gives me the concept and I have to work on the concept. I'm more the person who's creating randomly from what I collect. So in art, I can do that. I can just start, and at the end, the result is unknown. And I like that approach because my brain functions like that. I can't work on a concept from. It reminds me to this what I have read from Temple Grandin there about bottom-up thinking and top-down thinking, like building up from details, collecting details and building, or to have a concept and then start to work on that concept. So
Yeah.
I just, this is the way how I got into art. I know I want to do art.
Great. And before we we have some of your art to show people, but I just want to say quickly, in respect to what you said about doing things for yourself, producing art that comes from you organically instead of having somebody pay you to do certain stuff. I totally get that. I'm exactly the same way with music, any creative medium that I involve myself in. I remember my parents always suggested to me, you do so well with music. Why don't you do something like that professionally? It's because I know that if I were to be successful in music, the type of music that I would end up doing would just involve people asking me to record stuff for them, and then I would just end up hating it, whereas I would continue to enjoy it if I just kept it as a hobby. Now, what I wanted to show some people is some of the art that you've done, because like John said towards the beginning, it's actually quite entrancing. It's quite I felt some positive emotions swirling in between me because of the amount of detail and the unique design of it. So do you want me to, can we show you, the people some of your stuff? Maybe you can explain to people what sort of the meaning behind some of it is, or how it helps you to do these types of paintings.
Sorry, could you repeat that again?
Oh, okay. Well, right now I just put up on the screen the first painting that you sent me.
Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, go ahead. Take it away.
Yeah, this one, I started doing this before my diagnosis. It's you can't see this in the small screen, but these are really small dots, and the dots are like 0.05 millimeters.
Yeah.
And it's like I have worked on that for 5 months, and it's, how should I say,
5 months? Wow.
5 months, and it's pretty obsessive. I was obsessed with dots, and I'm still, but it was interesting to do it because I have observed in that approach that as I say, I didn't have a concept, but I found it interesting to just do one hand movement all the time. So I was able to go into this really, like, into hyper focus, into this neutral space. And I did that in difficult moments, in anxious moments, in kind of angry moments, in not angry moments. And because in my life things are mostly pretty black and white, and good or bad. Finding balance isn't easy. It was extremely pleasing to just do this hand movement over and over for 5 months. And I just found a fascination in this, doing these dots, like a stimming behavior or something. I can zone out for hours.
Yeah, a lot of people are actually saying that in the chat. That's sort of what it's reminding them of. That's kind of a profound idea, just to not think about what you're doing, but restrict yourself to one hand movement and just see what happens, and just let your inner self, your psyche, just run wild. And just to produce something like this, it's sort of like Impressionism and the high detail in the paintings that came before Impressionism combined together, and that's what I love about it. Should we move on to the second one?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Check this one out. This is what I wish I would see when I look up into the sky at night, but unfortunately, you know, living in Canada, one of the highest air polluting countries in the world, we don't get to see stuff like this. So
Yeah, you should come to the Andes. There you can see it.
oh, definitely, yeah.
Yeah. This one is like one of my latest, where I just continued with dots and a little bit of color, because color was also something I was literally black and white, always drawing in black and white. And that time I just took the colors which I personally like most right now, which is a kind of orangey color and a kind of blue greenish something color.
It's
Yeah.
John, you ever see Ferris Bueller's Day Off?
No, I didn't. Sorry.
Oh man, okay. Well, first of all, you need to see that movie, and we're gonna have problems until you do. No, I'm kidding. But I just there's a scene in that movie where like one of the main characters, he visits a museum and he just gets lost in a painting, and this is a type of painting where I could just look at it and just completely lose touch with my senses for a little bit, and it's so relaxing and such a I don't want to say perverse, but let's say odd way. All right, let's move on to the next one. This is what you see when you die, supposedly. No, sorry, go ahead, Olivia.
Yeah, it's like
if you've been good,
it's maybe one big, like a giant dot, but it's not this hand movement of one like doing dot. Just it's lines, just lines, and it was. I was also kind of enjoying this because I like the effect when I look at it. It's like blurry on the sides, and I like the sensation of it. So
very helpful. By the way, when you do these types of paintings, is there a particular meaning behind them? Are you sort of just doing it unconsciously and letting things happen as they may?
Yeah, it's. I wouldn't say it. It's at the end, it's a kind of therapeutic work also.
Okay.
Yeah, I started with that intensely after my diagnosis. It's just pleasing, and I don't plan to do what I do. It's just like in the moment it happens.
It feels as though your work is organic. It kind of grows. It kind of grows, and it seems like it grows under your hand. And when you just said, "I don't plan what I do," that's what it made me think of. Is that it's almost like some expression underneath your deliberate consciousness.
But now is the time where we finally get into the mailbag segment of the show. So, if you have questions, or you want read on the show rather, make sure that you submit them to us for our mailbag segment, and you can do so by emailing us at maxderrat@yahoo.ca at any time. Or if you want to have your questions potentially read live on this particular episode of the show, make sure you use Twitter and use the hashtag differentlywired. However, if you want to guarantee that your question is read, please use the super chat function down below. It will make your comment highlighted. It'll be easy for us to see, and it'll help support the show and all our endeavors moving forward. So without further ado, let's get on to the very first question. And this question comes to us from somebody named Carcosa. And Carcosa writes, "Thank you so much for this series. I was having a bit of a meltdown earlier because I'm going through a lot of rough things right now, and I cannot ignore my symptoms any longer. It is extremely difficult for me to accept that I have AS. My mother is a diehard optimist, i.e. borderline personality, who refuses to acknowledge anything less than perfection no matter what it costs others, and has basically gaslighted me my entire life. So have many other women who decided that my disability could be useful to them. I don't know if you have ever heard of MGTOW, that's actually how it's pronounced, but I would suggest the videos of Sunrise Hoodie, as MGTOW advocates a lifestyle that I find very attractive. It's an abbreviation for men going their own way, and despite what society might like to label it as, it's really just about stepping back from the world, taking the time to properly assess one's own needs, and progressing from there. Much of the MGTOW content on YouTube is rather hateful, but he's really good about emphasizing the positives of a disciplined, uncomplicated life without being a total jerkface. I'm 43, and my AS has led to me being particularly vulnerable to liars and manipulators, and basically I'm swearing off society for a while because it's brought me no end of woes. I got heavy post-traumatic stress disorder from a violent childhood, your school video is spot on, and sexual abuse from female narcissists, man-eaters, that target boys like me. But it's wonderful to hear someone explaining the curse from the inside. You really pulled me out of a bad situation with these videos. 2 hours ago, I was having a meltdown. Now I feel a lot better. Thank you so much. I think I'm going to have a good cry now, but again, thanks. You may have saved my life, Carcosa. Well, thank you so much for that, Carcosa. I'm really humbled that I may have saved your life, and just receiving comments like that make all the efforts put towards this channel all worth it. John, until you received this email, have you ever heard of MGTOW? Do you know what that's all about?
I believe you referred to MGTOW a couple of years ago to me. I haven't been following it, and I don't know about the public presentations. Carcosa refers to some of the stuff that's less unseemly online. But the idea that one group tries to force its opinions on another is repugnant to me. It's like drink the Kool-Aid. It's like, this is what we see in my line of work all the time, where young people are meant to live to some standard or way of being that is not suitable to them. And so looking through that question, I thought back to when I first married in the 60s. We had gone through a lot of stuff about women and the change in workplaces, and there's been kind of an upheaval, and I can see this MGTOW as a kind of a reaction to that cultural shift where certain things changed in our cultures, and some were nice changes and some were needed changes and some were men have sort of step back and say, okay, wait, now I got to figure my way a different way. It's like I got to go walk about on this culture.
Yeah, as far as I agree, obviously. As far as MGTOW goes, I love the chat today. People are making hilarious comments. Some of the people are saying, please don't go into MGTOW. That's a huge can of worms. Don't worry. I'm not going to make a big speech about the whole thing because it's a very, very complicated subject. I'll just say this. I know a little bit. I don't know a little bit. I actually know quite a decent amount about MGTOW, having been a part of Honey Badger Radio for a year and a half and encountering a lot of people that consider themselves men going their own way. I'll just say this. There are pros and cons to the whole thing. As far as pros go, they have a pretty decent point to make when it comes to stuff like marriage and divorce and how that negatively impacts men. They have good points to make about women that give in to their hypergamous instincts and manipulate men in the way that Carcosa apparently was manipulated. However, I'll just say that what I found among certain segments of the MGTOW community is a huge mistrust of women and thinking that basically the majority of women out there are slaves to their primitive instincts and that they're all out to manipulate men and try to get their resources, which completely undervalues what women's contribution is to society and to relationships, and only prioritizing the masculine, which isn't good. And anybody who's, if you're like me, I managed to have positive relationships with women all my life, and they've had profound impacts on me for positive reasons. So just in respect to that, I won't go too much into it. I understand, but if you're going to consider yourself a MGTOW, try not to go down the ideological route. Just pursue it in the sense that you're trying to better yourself. You're trying to make yourself more interesting, more attractive, more educated, so that you can respect yourself and thus have people, men and women, not necessarily romantically, but just socially, people gravitate to you, and that's good. Olivia, did you want to say anything on the subject? Are you familiar with all this crap?
No, I'm not.
Okay, please. It's probably best that you stay away from that huge can of worms, like everybody's saying. It gets messy from time to time. Anyways, let's move on to the next question, which comes to us from Neko Salad to Han, and he writes, "Good day to you and John." Well, good day to you, Neko Salad. I'm not sure that's your real name. That's too BA a name to be real, but BA means badass. I have been diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome, and one difficult challenge that have been the bane of my life is being unintentionally rude. I hurt my friends and I show up as arrogant when I really am just expressing my emotions or even my ideas. Is there any strategy to not enter this kind of mess, or perhaps what to do when you screw up so bad that your best friend threatens to leave you if you keep insulting them? They know that I'm not intentionally doing this, but still they are not good to forgive and understand every time. Yeah, I have some things that I'd like to suggest. Obviously, I've been in the exact same boat as you, and I'm sure that Olivia probably has one or two things to say on this.
Oh, totally.
Yeah, one thing that your friends need to understand, like I'm sure that you're a very kind person and very decent person, Nico. If you're reaching out to us and trying to remedy this type of situation, one thing that you need to really get across to your friends is that you have absolutely no desire to insult them, and even if it seems that way, um, the ultimate thing that they need to realize is that you're not. And what the both of you need to do is figure out strategies to make it your friendship. What's the word? Make your friendship successful, I guess, for lack of a better term. One thing that you can do to help this along is to, like, obviously when you're insulting them, you're probably just talking about situations involving their personal life or your personal life. Maybe just try to avoid that. Maybe just talk about stuff that isn't personal, stuff like movies or music or games or work or school, things that don't involve somebody's personal actions or personal thoughts. And I know that's a little bit easier said than done because, you know, you like to talk about things that are going on in your life and stuff that you do. But if there's a way that you can avoid that, that's one thing that you can do. Also, explain to them that when it comes to the mind of somebody that has Asperger's syndrome, explain to them that emotional attachment to certain subjects is something that you probably are not neurologically wired to comprehend. So if somebody feels insulted, the reason why you probably don't understand why they feel insulted is because you're probably just making an empirical observation about something that they did or something that happened in their life. And it doesn't occur to you to be emotional about that subject. So maybe try to get that across to them if you haven't. And finally, I just want to say, if they feel insulted, get them to tell you right away. Because if there's that understanding that you want to try and have a relationship where they can always where you can always come to each other and feel happy and feel safe, if they get them to tell you right away that they feel insulted, and then you can quickly tell them that insulting them was not your intention, and then both of you can sort of work out each other's thought processes so that you can maybe help build each other up. Maybe you can make them realize something wrong that they might have done, something that wrong that you might have done, and that it's all for, you know, trying to build a positive relationship moving forward. Anyways, I've spoken long enough on this. Olivia, John, anything you want to add?
I'll jump in with a couple of thoughts. One very useful set of principles comes out of Nonviolent Communication, which is a book by the same name, written by the late Marshall Rosenberg. He teaches ways of speaking that are not threatening, and one can pick up certain language cues just by learning to state needs rather than opinions. So you kind of soften your language by certain techniques. It's a bit tricky if you have Asperger's, but it can teach you certain strategies. The other more intimate thing would be perhaps to tell somebody who is receptive, could you be my ally in the room? Could you alert me? Could you give me a warning? Could you tell me to shut up?
Mm-hmm.
You know, when I'm, you know, in the crowded bar and I'm starting to sound weird, give me a tap on the shoulder or something. So maybe somebody could be
Your social wingman.
Yeah. Social wingman. Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. That sounds like a great idea. Olivia, anything you want to add before we move on?
Mm-hmm. I really didn't have a big strategy, but I, for example, remind myself, or I remind myself if I'm rude, because I am, and I'm often rude when I'm kind of irritable or tired, and if in different occasions. But it's important to just to also say that it is not your intention, and that you
love
yeah
them and you
I,
respect them and you want to, help them
yeah
in any possible circumstance.
communicator.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just making sure that there's always that underlying feeling of love and respect, and making sure that you want the best for each other. And once that's established, and then you establish that you never intend to insult them, then these things are a lot easier to work beyond. I can certainly vouch for that because that's exactly what's happened in my own life. All right.
Mm.
Next question comes to us from Griffin. And Griffin writes, greetings. As the title of this email suggests, I'm interested in submitting questions for your upcoming program. Well, good, because you made it, man. Congratulations. You should feel very proud of yourself. I'm kidding. For the sake of anonymity, I request that my email address not be displayed. I got you, boy. I got you, man. My questions are, number one, what are strategies that an individual with ADHD or ADD could use to concentrate on reading effectively and generally following through on tasks? Well, I sort of answered this question in respect to Asperger's last week, but obviously John is the expert when it comes to ADHD specifically. John, you want to take that away?
Sure. I'll look at the first part first. Reading effectively is a challenge to clients of mine continuously. In fact, we've been talking about it today to several clients. And one of the things that happens when you have ADHD, ADD, is that you can be restless.
Mm.
And it's difficult to sit still for hours and hours reading. Some clients come to me in their middle years and they've never actually read a whole book. It's that it can be that difficult. So what we work on is a pile of different strategies, often involving movement and place and context. You might find working in a library more conducive, a coffee shop more conducive. Each person's a little different, but you need to explore ways that makes it easy. The other thing is sitting down too much is a nuisance.
Oh, yeah.
It's actually a health problem as well as a distraction. So it's not bad to stand up. In fact, today one of my clients said, "Oh, I've got a music stand. I can use the music stand to put my books on," right?
Mm.
Because he plays music. So that can actually help. But just standing up is no good. You got to be able to answer your body's restlessness by a little movement. Not walking down the middle of the street in traffic, but movement. Movement up, get up from the chair, sit down, get up, have coffee. So that's one kind of way to do it. The other thing, when you're reading, it often helps to have a fidget toy. And if people don't know what that is, you can look it up on Google.
Oh,
But
yeah. Yep.
there's something in the hands that kind of acts like a minor stimulant medication. It helps you focus because you're tapping your foot, wiggling a pencil, waving around a keychain, something like that.
Yeah, your sensory input is going to different parts of your body, and it's not all
That's right.
concentrated in your brain.
That's right. And so that helps you sort of focus your brain's attention. Your prefrontal cortex is more able to gear in on the reading process. The other part of that question, generally following through on task, is kind of different. And there is a whole set of strategies. Actually, Olivia and I chatted about that earlier. I call it the rule of one and using stickies. And what it is, you have to focus on one thing at a time. I'm not going to go through the whole strategy,
Yeah.
but I would say this: a to-do list is a kiss of death. What you want is a pending list over there, off to the side, and your to-do list is one thing. So if you have a to-do list of one thing, and no matter what happens, you try to come back to that one thing. It's easier than doing everything at once.
Right. All right. Sorry, guys. I would expand the conversation a little bit further, but we have to move on because John only has a few minutes left. Question 2 from Griffin. He asks, I am to believe that individuals with ADHD and ADD can have difficulty in choosing a life path. Is this correct? If so, how could one with ADHD/ADD overcome such an issue? Well, I'll just give a very quick answer to this in respect to stuff that has helped me, because I also have a diagnosis of ADHD. Things that have helped me include white noise, just putting on some headphones, finding something that can overpower the senses so that you don't immediately jump to thoughts that distract you from the task at hand. Lyricless music, so music without lyrics, that really helps. Another strategy that John actually helped me, suggested to me once when I was still in university, was reading, challenging yourself to read faster than you normally do. Because when you read faster, like a little bit faster than you're normally used to, it sort of challenges your brain to pay more attention to what is going on, and it sets a task to, it's sort of like a locomotive effect, but for the brain, where it kind of becomes a little bit harder to stop or get distracted by things once you read stuff a little faster. John, anything else you want to add?
No, but speeding up can leave the distracting thoughts behind. And of course, we're also into question 2 about the life path business. I did want to mention before we leave that area that one of my favorite resources is What Color is Your Parachute? Very famous book written by the recently deceased Richard Bowles, fabulous guy, died at 90. And every year he rewrote this book. And most of it is not about a job search, but about defining what it is that draws your attention. Here's the key. When you have ADHD, when you're neurobiologically diverse, you need stuff you want to do. You need stuff that engages your passion, your attention. If you don't like adding up numbers and stuff, like, if you don't like working in a bank job, if that distresses you, you're not going to be really comfortable doing that. So you need something that you feel is worth doing and you can kind of lose yourself in, because otherwise it won't work. So What Color is Your Parachute? If you're in the middle of transitioning to a new career or trying to find one, that's a fabulous resource. About the best I've ever seen.
Yeah, absolutely. That's the one that a lot of, pretty much every kid uses, especially when they're in high school. Okay, we're going to get to one more email question, and then we're going to see what is left in the Twitter sphere, and then we're going to have to conclude this because, like I said, John has to go. And Olivia, if you want to say anything on this, on these subjects, please feel free to just speak right away. Don't worry about interrupting us. Okay. All right. Final question comes to us from Michael Barnett. And Michael writes, "Hey, Max, my name is Michael Barnett." A little bit redundant there, sorry. And I have, not you, Michael, but me, because I repeated it. And I have Asperger's and wanted to ask you some questions of the problems I've been having. And since you're someone with Asperger's, you seem like the right person to come to. I am currently in 11th grade and dealing with some social issues and learning disabilities, and these problems have been relevant my whole life. So what is your advice to deal with them in the near future so they won't be such a problem? Also, I am currently dealing with bullies because of my Asperger's, and it's the real reason my anxiety is off the chart. And the authority is not much help, so with someone with Asperger's, what is your way when bullying gets out of hand? Last but not least, so for the passions I have, like video games, movies, anime, etc., I was wanting to turn that into a career like animation or YouTube, but with someone with Asperger's, how would you turn that passion into a career? Thanks for answering, Max. I know it was a mouthful. However, you are a big role model for me for the position I'm in. I'm your role model? That's not good. No, I'm kidding. Anyways, but before I begin to answer those questions, I'm not sure if it's John or Olivia, but there's sort of a clicking going on in the background. It sounds like a pen or something. If you could stop that, or stop whatever that is, I'd appreciate it. I just don't want people getting mad. First of all, I'll address the career thing quickly. When it comes, because we sort of have some overlap there, because I'm very much into movies and video games. Aside from the Asperger's videos I do videos on that. The most important thing that you can do is build your own portfolio. Put forward, compile a list of your work and put it somewhere so that employers can see. My YouTube channel is basically my portfolio. So whenever I apply for jobs in radio or for production companies, which I have done, I listed my YouTube channel and the work that I've done and the types of advocacy that I've done to try and impress my employers, because that's mainly what they're looking for. And you can go for a university degree. I would caution against that though, because it basically comes down to the skills that you have. If you go to a university, they mostly teach you theory rather than practical skills that you can use like at a computer or in a studio or something like that. So I'd highly encourage not going to university, but going to a college program or an apprenticeship. Unless, if the theory aspect is what you're looking for. In that case, I'd highly recommend going to university. Um, as far as resources in respect to social issues and bullies, if you're in 11th grade, that means you're probably what, 16 or 17, right? So that's you're pretty much coming up to the point where resources begin to become a little bit limited if you have AS, because what I've found in my experience is that when you get past the age of 18, resources start to dwindle in respect to what you can attain for school and work and stuff like that. So I'd highly suggest that you seek them out now. I would, if you want to sort of work with me and tell me, like, send me another email telling me what country you live in. I can maybe find resources for you that are closer to your area. If you live in Canada, I can probably help you a little bit faster in that regard. Seek your guidance counselor out. You probably have guidance counselors if you're in high school. Talk to them about finding jobs and finding resources that can help you socialize and choosing proper career paths and stuff like that. As far as bullies go, I would need to know a little bit more about the specific situations that you're in, because all I can really do is give you general advice, which is to tell somebody about it, tell them how it's affecting you. And there are people out there, whether it's your fellow professors or your family members or your friends, that will do everything in their power to make sure that this stops, because it's not good. John, anything you want to say before we go into the live stuff?
Sure. One of the things about being bullied is you're in a place where there's not much empathy. Counterintuitively and oddly, there is more empathy in a martial arts class.
Mm.
And people are assumed to be different when you join some martial arts class. And there are side benefits to that. It helps you center yourself, whatever you choose, Aikido, Tai Chi, Taekwondo, something. But you will also have friends that are automatically friends and buddies. And you'll learn self-control. You'll, of course, learn skills. You'll feel a little better. So I would explore that as a way of making yourself internally stronger to handle that kind of situation. Because as you point out, Michael, the authorities are not much use in that regard. You got to kind of rely on your friends and yourself. And your friends, I think, in that kind of environment might be more easy to come by.
Right.
In addition to John, I was pretty surprised when I found out that also here in Lima, in Peru, you can find Asperger's groups where, like, for girls, for boys, like, everyone can join. And dependent on where you live, you should look for groups where you could meet people and change your experiences and your I think this is also an addition to say.
Yeah,
it would be good.
What's is the name of the website? Meetup.com, is that what it's called, John? Yeah, that's one great resource if you're looking for people to socialize with that share your interests and are more than willing to forgive your Asperger's related quirks. Meetup.com, it'll show you anything near wherever you live, groups that are involved with anime or movies or video games. And I found in my experience when I've used them, when I've gone to like political meetups and stuff like that, everybody's absolutely wonderful, and they're just ecstatic that there's somebody out there like them that shares that interest, that they're willing to look over those superficialities. Okay, so we come near to the end of the show. We'll only have time for one live question from Twitter. Sorry about that, guys. It's just the technical difficulties, and also John, he's a professional. He has clients waiting for him. So we're going to conclude with one question from Twitter that comes to us from Ed Zucconi. And Ed writes, hold on, I'm just going to put up the YouTube chat so everybody can see. How does one with Asperger's encounter the reality that their childhood career expectations ended up being unrealistic, then go on to live a fulfilling and happy life? I had wanted to be a professional artist. I ended up being an art teacher to avoid the stress of unpaid overtime. Uh, I mean, is that unique to people with Asperger's? I mean, I wanted to be the next Evel Knievel. No, not really. But what I would say, like I understand what you're saying, dude. Like, there's certain elements to things that you're passionate about that you want to avoid, and thus you'll settle for things that are less stressful. What I would recommend you do, if you're an art teacher but you also want to be a professional artist, you just need to set aside time. Uh, like maybe it's an hour a day or maybe a half an hour a day, just some time where you can build upon your extracurricular projects. And if you continuously do that, if you set a commitment to do that for like a month and then push yourself to do it for a second month and continue doing it once for 30 minutes or an hour or 2 hours every day, you can build a portfolio. You can send it around uh, to agencies that look at stuff like that and promote it. That way, you're not constantly having to be stuck, feel stuck where you are right now, and you can build beyond that. That's sort of what I'm doing with this YouTube channel right now. I'd love to be able to help people with Asperger's and also just to talk about stuff that I like. And ideally, that'd be something that I could do for a living. But right now, I'm just sort of doing that while also doing a job where I'm doing regional fulfillment at a department store. It's something that you have to stick to. You have to set a calendar, you have to set a schedule, and you have to find ways to commit yourself to that. And you'll be surprised if you just commit yourself to doing something and say, I'm going to work really hard at this for 3 months or even 2 months. See what happens. You'll be surprised at the results that you can attain. I mean, I've been surprised at the results that I've been able to attain for myself by doing this YouTube channel, for example. John?
Yeah, when I was a school teacher about 1,000,000 years ago, lots of the music teachers I met were people who really would have preferred to make a living professionally at music, but they couldn't.
Mhm.
The ones that were very good music teachers poured their heart and soul into that with a passion and regarded the other part as an add-on. The ones that were discontent and never worked, they kind of always resented the kids, they resented the work. So it's kind of like if you're in a job, like go at it with a passion, and that will take away some of that sting of discontent.
Mhm. Great.
And the kids will benefit too.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for this episode of the Differently Wired show. Listen, I want to thank everybody for sticking with us towards the very end, sticking with us through all those technical difficulties. I promise you they won't, well, those particular ones won't happen again. I can't tell you if the internet will crap out on us.
We can find a whole bunch of new technical difficulties.
Yes, I mean it's in the name, right? You come here expecting stuff to go wrong. Differently wired. So forgive us for that, but we'll figure it out. Listen, if you want to have your particular problem discussed, if you want us to give you some advice or direct you to some particular resources, please refer to the content that you see on screen right now. Please contact us by using the email maxderrat@yahoo.ca. Been receiving all your emails, been trying our best to respond to each one. Or if you want to ask a question during the actual live streams, make sure you tweet using the hashtag #DifferentlyWired. And also, if you want to support the show, I understand a lot of you probably don't have very many financial means. If you do, the best thing that you can do is just submit a question via Super Chat, or we have a PayPal link in the description box below. We'd really appreciate that. But if you can't contribute financially, that's totally fine. But if you still want to help us, the most helpful thing you can do is one of two things. One, just like this stream. Just hit that like button. That's all you have to do. And I can't tell you how much that helps us. It's because when a particular video or a particular stream gets a lot of likes, it tells the YouTube algorithm that our content is worth watching, and it spreads it around to a whole bunch more people that might really require this type of help. And also, just if you want to take this video and share it on your social media or share it with somebody that you know that might have mental health problems, that helps us more than you can possibly realize. Before we conclude, I just want to thank John, as always, for doing the show with me, and he's always a massive help. I don't know, I couldn't imagine doing this with anybody but him. And also, I want to thank Olivia for coming on. and talking about her experiences with us. If Olivia, I know that you're sort of concerned about privacy and not sharing your real name, but I'll talk to you about maybe sharing links to your other work so people can check them out, and we'll put in the description box below if that's what you want to do. We'll talk about that after the show. And that's about it, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much for joining us for this particular episode, and until next time, have a lovely, lovely day.